I didn't really know much about the Arcturian, and I've never really paid much attention about these different alien races and such. So recently, some of you have watched my videos recently after I started to write a book which I was inspired. I didn't even know it was gonna be a book, but later it just turned out to be a book. And then I discovered, after I finished the book, I discovered that I am actually receiving messages which are not necessarily my own imagination as people would define imagination. It's a really interesting phenomena that, all of us, anytime, anywhere, depends on the mood of a person. We can have a dialogue, we can have a conversation with beings from different places. And after I discovered that, it was just like really interesting phenomena. Even though I admit that I have always had this experience, I just didn't know that the message was coming from somewhere else or from some other sources. It's not until recently that I discovered that the information you receive, you can actually have a back and forth communication. You can actually communicate with the source of that information. What happened is most of the media or most of people, they explain it as something that is, you need a you have to be trained, you have to be a show, you have to be like some sort of, they kind of pull it further away from you, giving you the notion that it's far, but it's not really, it's not far, it's just within your reach. Anyways, so until recently, that's when I discovered that I can actually communicate with, with almost anything. I mean, given circumstances, like you have to have at least a stable emotional state, a slightly, clear mind, then you can receive the information. And so anyway, so after I discovered, I was like, let me try to find more information about, channeling, how to make it more effective to receive a clear message without my mind interfering it. So I was just thinking about it before before I saw someone posted on Facebook on the group called Advanced Channeling, and like, okay, well, this is what I was thinking. Let me just ask to join the group and see what's gonna happen. So I joined the group. I think I'm not remembering actually the first question I asked, but I just asked a question, and the admin, she told me that you are an Arcturian, and you have some blockages. We can try to clear them out so that you can receive more messages. And then she told me something about the master of creation, and something else. She said, you can also explain to us what is the mechanics of energies. I'm like, okay, well, I'm not that good with physics, but let's see how that one is gonna be. So, anyways, after that, like when she said you're an Arcturian, I didn't really pay much attention. I'm like, I'm just gonna put it aside for now. I'm not really I don't know anything about those beings or anything. So I just let it slide, and then what happened is I just try. I'm like, okay, I can do this. I'm just gonna sit down and just try to write whatever comes in. So I wrote a piece about the mechanics of manifestation, on which I have already posted a video about it. And the interesting thing is I've never also have much interest on the flower of life. I know, like, oh, the flower of life, it's this and that, but I have not really tried to dive much into it because I was never really drawn to it anyways. So it was not until recently I've posted a video about Terence Howard. He was talking about the flower of life, and there was all these rumors and hype about him leaving the Hollywood career, and he's gonna explore about the flower of life, and he has opened it up, and he created the planet Saturn externally. Anyways, there's a video about it. I posted a while ago. You can watch it. But anyways, so after Terence explained it, I kind of got like some insights about what he was saying. And then I decided to post a video about what I understood, according to him. So after that, that was pretty much it. I never really explored about the flower of life that much. So, anyways, after back to the group, after the group advanced channeling, when the lady said, "You can tell us about the mechanics of energy," I'm like, okay, well, let me try to see. But anyways, so I sat down, I was trying to just write whatever it's coming in. So apparently the creation and the flower of life is like the pattern behind the physical manifestation. So there is a realm that is the spiritual realm, which is not really physical. But when you think about physical, it's something that is endless. You can't really magnify it to the smallest. You never reach the smallest. You will just keep on going and on and on and on forever. But the thing about this is like it's a fractal. It's like a pattern that keeps on going on and on and on forever. But the secret to it, it's just that the manifestation of the physical reality, it's something, the essence of the physical reality is spiritual. So that means when the spiritual forces are impressed upon the physical, that's when the manifestation of that fractal patterns appears. And that fractal pattern is the flower of life. But the flower of life, most of us, the way we see them or the way we understand them, most of people understand them in like two-dimensional, where you have one circle and then another circle and then you go on and on. But that's when Terence, he was talking about, it's a three-dimensional flower of life, where instead of having circles, you're having spheres. And these spheres, they're in all places, they're in like three-dimensional instead of one-dimensional. So when you draw that, it becomes a little bit complex than the simple famous flower of life. But then it gets even deeper, because it's not only three-dimensional pattern, it goes up to like seventh dimensional. So the thing is, you can imagine it as let's use like an example of an orange. So an orange, let's assume this orange is made up with other smaller fruits like cherries. So there's all, you stash up a lot of cherries to make a larger fruit, which is like the orange. Like from the very center to the outer core of the orange, these cherries align themselves according to different densities. So the very center, it's the fluidiest one. It's very flexible and it wobbles like so much. But when you go at the outer shell of that orange, those cherries around, they are very dense. You can imagine they are denser like a concrete. They don't really move anymore. This is the basic, simple explanation of how, like, all those cherries around, it's those circles in the flower of life in 3D. So, and this alignment is basically where we get the spectrum of light, like when the seven lights arrange themselves accordingly. So from the very center, it's the violet, is the ultraviolet frequency, and then you go at the outer, very outer edge, is the red, which is the very, it's a thicker vibration. And that's very basically how the manifestation happens, where at the very center, it's where the consciousness is, because it's fluid. Your thoughts are very fluid. You think about the apple, it just manifests in your mind immediately. But when it comes to the physical world, it's a denser, where you have to actually, go to the store to buy that app, or you have to do some sort of an activity so that you can reach to that frequency, or you can reach that vibration. So anyways, this was what I got when this lady talked about, the mechanics of energy, but which is the mechanics of manifestation. And I've kind of tried to sit down and like investigate a little bit more on these mechanics of manifestation and flow of life, and it's beautiful and it's very interesting. I'm still working on writing about it though, but maybe in time, when I finish, when it's the right time, I'll probably publish it or something. But anyway, so after all that, and then she was talking about the master of creation. And I was like, well, what is master of creation? So I kept that thought in my mind for like, couple of days. And then later when I was just sitting in my garden, I was just looking at the flowers and stuff. And then it struck in my mind that, all these things we see, all the natural world around us, all the inanimate and animate objects, they are actually the product of the flower of life. They're the manifestation of the flower of life. So this flower of life is the master of creation. So it's interesting that all these things, I've always been around them, but I never saw them the way I see them now. And I'm like, okay, so the things this lady said, they're very interesting. Maybe I should actually try to pay attention to everything she's saying. So I'm like, okay, she said about Arcturian, and I'm like, I wanna know what these things are. So I didn't even had a thought of thinking of Googling about it. So I just went to, I had already been in a group called Arcturian on Facebook, and I went there and I asked the question, so how do you know you are Arcturian? And some people were just joking, and this one guy just posted a video clip. It's like an hour and 50 minutes. I'm like, no way I'm going to watch that long video. But I'm like, okay, let me just, listen to it a little bit. And this lady, she divided the video into 5 sections, and which each section she's talking about different alien races that are here. Well, alien or, spiritual beings that are on Earth. And there are some, significant characters within yourself that you can use to as a criteria to identify yourself. So I'm like, okay, let me listen what she's saying. So she's talking, and then she went to number 3. She's talking about some aspects that I just find myself resonate with them so much. I mean, other ones I also resonate with them a bit, but they don't, I don't have a tick on everything. And then I'm like, okay, let me go to number 3. So I listened to number 3, and I was like, wow, this is exactly me. And you know, there was no way that the guy who posted on Facebook knew anything about me, and the lady who posted the video knew anything about me. She put them in number without saying, this is number 2 is Arcturian, or number 1 is like Pleiadian or whatever. And then I'm like, okay, so I mean, the lady from the lady who was in advanced channeling group, she said, bluntly that I am Arcturian. She doesn't know anything about me. I haven't even really talked to her before that. And from the group, from the video, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting that, I am, supposedly Arcturian. Okay, thank you.